Names in ActiveCampaign, why you should care. I'm going to go through 3 common naming things, which is tags, fields, and emails, because those are the ones we need most often. And then I'm going to give you 5 top rules for happier naming. I promise this will make your life better in ActiveCampaign. The picture I want you to have in your mind is the crazy freezer full of Tupperware dishes and nothing's labeled properly. You go out to get your dinner, you have no idea what is in any of those tabs. Or worse, they've got the wrong label on them. This makes life hard for everybody. It's also hard for the machines that are working with you. If you imagine a robot machine that's going to come and look and pick a dish out of that freezer, if that dish is not labeled correctly, the machine can't find it either. So it's really important to label stuff properly. It prevents a whole load of problems. Prevention is better because it's going to save you time and money in the future. It is going to reduce errors. We need to be able to find stuff, recognize it, and use it reliably and quickly. ActiveCampaign itself and the other tech tools all need to be able to find stuff accurately, reliably, fast. And we've got the customers, and it affects them too. If errors start to creep in, your customers, your leads, your clients will start to experience more things going wrong. And that's where it starts to cost you sales. And I know this may seem like a far distant thing, and I'm just going to lash this name in here for now. It will come and bite you on the bum if you keep doing that. I promise. I've seen it play out so many times. So let's look at some examples of how to get this right. And I'm going to start with tag names because they're really on the surface. Everybody uses tags. So I'm going to just teach you how I do tag names, a reliable, robust, easy to use system. So here's what I do. I use capitals on the front of the tag, capital letters, and that typically is to do with what type of tag it is. I'll use a word like temp or source or purchase or product or appointment. It really helps using capitals there and then lower cases for the detail bit. This is because when we read tags, we're scan reading and knowing in our heads that that caps bit is the category and this is the detail. That really, really helps with scan reading and it breaks them up. If you've got that caps, then lowercase, caps, then lowercase. It really helps. The character I use here is a colon. Lots of people I see using brackets. As soon as you start using special characters like brackets in there, that can cause real problems with integrations. So this is the structure that I recommend. It's up to you what sort of category or types words you use on the beginning. It's helping with his readability and quickly scanning your tags. By the way, if you keep a list of what your tags mean, you can keep your tag names nice and short. You can change tag names later on, but it can be a problem because they don't always edit reliably in all of the places. So have a system, keep a list, and use that format. Field names. Custom fields are where you have a little stash place in the back end of ActiveCampaign. So we've got the standard fields, first name, last name, email address. This is where you can add your own custom fields. Custom fields need to have a name. What you should not ever do is call a field name something like, what is your favorite packet of crisps? You don't ever want to use a long field name like that. If you wanted to ask someone that question, when you put it on a form, that's the prompt for them to fill it in. What is your favorite packet of crisps? But the field name itself needs to be much shorter than that. Here's what ActiveCampaign does when you create a new field. It takes the characters of your field name and it puts in between them these little underscore characters and uses capital letters to make this thing here. This is called the personalization tag for the field name. It is used in all sorts of useful places, like if you want to use the value of a field inside an email. So just imagine for a moment that you write a really, really long field name with like 10 words in it and think about what that is then going to look like. It's going to be much harder to work with. If you do it like this, you will know for sure that on the personalization tag, it's going to be those letters in capitals with an underscore in between. It makes it really predictable and really easy to work with. And remember, field names are internal. They're for you. They're not for the contact on the front end. Okay, email names. So this is where you've got an email and it is in an automation or it's a campaign email. We need to name our emails so that the system can find them and so that things like reports or analytics can tell us stuff about what happened with that email, like click rates, open rates, e-commerce transactions. So we use email names a lot more than we realize. They're also used when you want to find an email that you already created somewhere else and use it as the starting point to make a new one. So they need to be understandable to the human brain really quickly. So these top three, this is typically how I would use email naming within an automation. And in this case, my automation is known by GTKY. It doesn't really matter what that is. It's some acronym that I use in my business. I would use a very short description of what's in that email. What's the purpose of that email? So we've got a welcome email, an email that nudges them to give us a reply, and an email that has a call to action to say, please book a call. They're short, they're consistent, but it does what it says on the tin. And that's really helpful later on when you want to look at your reports and be like, what was that email doing? And is it doing any good? I see a lot of people use subject lines here. The subject line is doing a very different job to the internal name of the email. Your contacts never see these tools, an internal name of that thing. And then what I do with campaign emails is I tend to use a sort of a type word. Like if I've got emails that I send out to my members, I would use that word consistently on the beginning of any campaign email that is sending out to my members. This makes it much easier to categorize your emails when you're looking for them in reports or analytics or anything else. So that's like a category thing. It's a bit like we did with tags, right? Category. And then if it's a regular campaign email that I send out every week, I can use a date format like this: the year, the month, and the week. What's really important is that you do it consistently. Whatever system you use, be rigidly consistent about it. And that way you or anyone in your team will be able to go back and use those things anytime. Which brings me neatly onto the rules for naming. Your naming rules must be human friendly. Any name that you use needs to make sense to the humans in your business. So if you use acronyms, make sure that you rigidly stick to that acronym and use it in exactly the same way every single time you use it. Agree some common language and stick to it. Number 2, keep them short. If you make long names for stuff, you're going to come unstuck because ActiveCampaign often will only show you the very front of the name. Be consistent. If you can have some internal system and you consistently use that internal system, it doesn't really matter what your system is. If you use it consistently, you can work with it. And then anyone else who comes into your business, whether it's a consultant or a new assistant or a trainee, you can show them that system and then they'll be able to tell what anything is just by looking at the name. The name of that thing should tell them what it is intuitively, quickly, reliably. Number 4, don't use special characters. Avoid these things. So this is things like brackets, commas, question marks, forward slashes, ampersands, lots of special characters. And this is to do with the machines. When the machines read the special characters, they use them to mean things like percentage marks mean stuff in computer world. So don't use them in names of things. It will cause you problems later on. So that's why in my naming conventions where I'm doing things like the tag names, for example, I'll use a colon or maybe a hyphen, but that's it. Nothing else. Final rule, document. Write down the names of things and what they mean. Even if the only thing you did was keep a running list of the tags that are in your account and what those tags mean, that is going to bring you happiness later on as your ActiveCampaign account grows. It is deeply tempting to just name stuff as you go along and not bother doing it. But prevention is easier than cure in this case. So documentation. I have evolved a template for doing that. And I use it to keep lists of what's in ActiveCampaign accounts like tags, fields, automations. And that template is gold dust for keeping track of stuff and making sure that you're consistent around your naming and that you know what everything is doing in your world. So just to round that up, good naming conventions will save you a ton of trouble, time, and money and help you look like a magician to your customers and clients, which is what we all want. If you're looking at your account now and thinking, I should have done that a bit better, or holy heck, my names are a mess, I've got problems here, untangling what stuff is already called can be really challenging. I advise caution. So if you can avoid getting into that mess in the first place, great. If you're in that position where you need to do some fixing, just be cautious about it. The first thing you should do is write down a list of what's in there and what those things are attached to. For example, a tag. Before you change the tag, you need to know what automations is that tag used in? Are there any integrations that are looking at it? Are there some segments that are using it that I need to know about? So you have to map what is this thing attached to before you start changing it. Once you've mapped it, you can fix it, do the edit, and then you check everywhere that it's being used to make sure that everything's still working. In some cases, if you've got some names in your account that you wish you'd done differently, sometimes it's better to hang on to them and just live with them, because changing those later in the day can cause a little cascade of issues and problems. And sometimes you just got to live with it. So don't stress if you've got some less than ideal names. But what you should do is move towards using that best practice going forwards. So when you're creating a new process or a new tag or email, anything like that, start to be more thoughtful about how you use names. And even if you just get that consistency thing going, that would be really helpful in your world. So just to recap those rules: human friendly, short, consistent, no special characters, and write them down somewhere. Keep a list. All right, good. Have fun with your ActiveCampaign accounts. See you next time. Bye, everyone.